All right, good evening, everyone. So hopefully this will be the first of a series of Shiurim Eretz Hashem. The idea is to learn the Alter Rebbe and specifically go through the sugyas and see what the Alter Rebbe is adding, the diukim of the Alter Rebbe. I do hope to do this. Someone is making noise. Please mute yourself. Whoever's making noise. Sorry. Test the Facebook. That didn't work. So we're gonna eventually start in order, but just till we get into a groove, I figured we just start with some random interesting subjects. So today we're going to start with Kiddush between 6 and 7. I'm going to text everyone a link to the PDF of all the source material. I'm also sharing it on the screen. And I just want to point out that another purpose of this year is to bring out the historical development of halacha, or in this case, minhag, how at various points, various inflection points where there's either machlokes or various minhagim, and could have gone either way, and it goes in a particular way. So we'll see that as we go along. So we all know the minhag not to make Kiddush between 6 and 7, but most people have no idea why, what, when, how do we count 6 or 7? I've heard many different versions, explanations. There's even a meme for it, which we see here. So let's get right to it. We'll start with Alter Rebbe. Reish Ayin Aleph Din Kiddush Al Yayin. Mitzvah Sasei Ben Atero V'Kadosh Yom Shabbos V'Dvarim. It's a mitzvah Sasei B'Deraisa to be Mekadosh the Shabbos with words. Shenemar Zachar Seimer Shabbos L'Kadosh. Koleimar Zachreu Zchiris Shabbos V'Kiddush. We'll skip the next part. Sif Beis. V'Tiknu Chachamim Shteiz Zchiro Zu Al Kesho Yayin. The Chacham were misakin that it's not enough that we just remember Shabbos by mentioning it the way your Yetzer Deraisa, but it has to be dafka on a cup of wine. Ben b'knisasei, ben b'yitziasei. Say when Shabbos comes in, say when Shabbos goes out. And the ideal way to perform this mitzvah is to make Kiddush as close as possible to the entrance of Shabbos, to the beginning of Shabbos. And even if he leaves shul while it's still daytime, you should make Kiddush immediately. The Kivan Shahesav Michel Kedesh, since he added from the weekday, from Friday to Shabbos, it's already for him the beginning of Shabbos. And he should make Kiddush immediately as close as possible to its beginning. And after Kiddush, he should eat immediately. And if he's not hungry to eat immediately, he can wait until as much as he wants, until he's has an appetite. And he can rely on the fact that he already mentioned Shabbos at its onset during Ma'ariv, which was which fulfilled his obligation with Deraisa. Because with Deraisa you only need to mention it with words, without wine. But he already mentioned it during davening. Sif Gimel, this is where we're getting to the subject of this of today. There are those who are careful not to make Kiddush during the first hour of the night. And now the Alter Rebbe puts in parentheses a very key point here. The Hainu, what's the first hour of the night? The 7th hour afternoon. Ayin Siman Tav Chav Ches. The Alter Rebbe is referring to Siman Tav Chav Ches, which talks about Rosh Chodesh and how you figure out Meilud. But we don't have that from the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. It didn't reach us, unfortunately. So that's a very crucial point here. The Alter Rebbe is pointing out that the first hour of the night is equivalent to the 7th hour after Chatzos, meaning 6 o'clock. How we determine that, we'll see. So back to that. So those who are careful not to make Kiddush during that hour, but rather either before the night, or after an hour into the night. Because in the first hour of the night is the mazel of Mars, and the Samach Mem Meshov, and the Samach Mem is the Malach that's rules over Mars and rules over this hour. Ukvar Nisbar is already explained. That L'chatchila, one should make Kiddush immediately as soon as he comes home from shul, even while it's still day. So that's what I'm saying, notwithstanding that this minhag to not make Kiddush during the first hour of the night, nevertheless, we already said that L'chatchila, one should make Kiddush in the first hour, notwithstanding this minhag, either before the night, or somebody's not muted and is making noise. Please mute yourself. Thank you. So L'chatchila, you should make Kiddush immediately as soon as you come home, either before night, ideally, then you Yetzel Chades, or if you come home and it's already in the first hour of the night, make Kiddush anyway. The Alter Rebbe was basically saying that you should not follow this minhag. Nevertheless, we know Rabbi Seinu Nisienu, the minhag was followed, not to make Kiddush in the first hour. We know many things in Shulchan Aruch that the Alter Rebbe paskins, like the Peskim against the Mekubalim, and the Siddur paskin the other way, or the minhag is the other way, even if it's not explicit in the Siddur or anywhere. So this is one of those things where the minhag is not like the Alter Rebbe writes in Shulchan Aruch, but we are makpid on this minhag, on this to be careful not to make Kiddush in the first hour of the night, which is the 7th hour afternoon. So now we're going to see what the Rebbe brings to it.
Good question. Isn't that usually before the first hour of the night?
Yes.
So how is
That's
it clear?
precisely the point. He's saying that it's irrelevant, this whole thing, because you're supposed to make Kiddush before.
We'll get there. Let's go in order. So the Rebbe is going to explain what exactly it means. But yes, the Rebbe is saying that ideally you should make Kiddush before. If you get home before, that's the best. If you get home before the first hour, you make Kiddush then. But sometimes you won't get home before the first hour, especially since the Rebbe already said the first hour is not the first hour after Shkia. It's the 7th hour after Chatzos. So you're not always going to get home before the 7th hour. I mean, it depends what time of the year. So, but the Rebbe is telling you make Kiddush anyway. So now we have in Shulchan Menachem, we have the Rebbe's letters about this. So first we have Chishav Hashois. We're going to go through this very quickly because we're going to come back to it after to contextualize everything. But just to first get an overview of what the Rebbe says. So the Rebbe says about the Mashakazo, it says here is Shrev Kaddish Mishasesh Ad Sheba Berev Shabbos in a movement Shakavano V'Shah Bas Shishim Rigoyim. The Rebbe says that about the minhag not to make Kiddush between 6 and 7. It's self-understood that it's referring to a minute of 60 to an hour of 60 minutes. Because the movement of the planets is identical in the summer and in the winter. And also in the time of Chatzos, there's no difference between the places that are north and south. So therefore, the sixth hour is 6, or meaning the 7th hour after the 6th hour is 6 hours, equal hours, not shazmaniyas, which are 1/12 of the day from Zricha till Shkia, or always till Tesakacham, depending how you count it. So not like a shazmaniyas, but regular hours of 60 minutes. Whoever asked that question asked the Rebbe again. He didn't understand the answer. And the Rebbe says, I don't understand what you don't understand. The rule of each mazel is an hour of 60 minutes. And the Seder's as explained in Shabbos Rashi. Therefore, the above is in the 7th hour. Now of the above mentioned hours, meaning 60 minutes. After Chatzais, 6 hours after Chatzais. As the Alter Rebbe says in the parentheses, Chatzais, and when is Chatzais? Chatzais is obviously the midpoint between Neitz and Shkia. So then we have some more answers from the Rebbe. Now the Rebbe is saying, we know the difference between the cheshbon, between the real path of the sun and the average, the mean path. And there's a difference about several things. The our custom is to follow the average. The Rebbe is saying about when we keveya the meilud, we'll get into that later, that we always that we follow malacham tzai. So here we follow the mean chatzais 6 hours after mean chatzais rather than the actual chatzais. Etc. According to this, we can understand that I've seen practice with Pearl. Even though the Rebbe said before that it should be from 6 hours from Chatzais, but the Rebbe is saying now this will explain that I've seen that people are actually makbid on 6 hours after the min Chatzais. That people aren't looking into every Shabbos what time is Chatzais and counting 6 hours from there. But that's Shabbos Masay Mistaimis. But it didn't say Befrat Ishkama Inyan the Kibbutz Dashul Barabim Shemer P'sayim Hashem. And especially in this particular matter, there's also the Inyan that since many have already trampled it, so Hashem protects the foolish. With the episode cites other things and about the tkufa and pouring water, etc. And especially in our Medina, it's primarily in the winter, and there are cloudy days, and people are busy getting ready for Shabbos, and it's not easy to figure out the time exactly when the sun is above, when the precise chatzais is. We have another answer that's basically the same thing, just short. But apparently it should have been 6 hours after the true chatzais, because it's easy for a person to know when chatzais is whenever the sun is above his head. Nevertheless, that I've seen practice, I'm sorry, 6 hours after the mean chatzais. And the Rebbe writes in the note, Amud Debar, meaning I've seen practice by stam regular people. In my father's house, and after that, what I saw by the Frierdiker Rebbe, anyway, the Kiddush was made a long time after the 7th hour, so it wasn't like anyway. Then the Rebbe talks about the minhag in Yisrael. The Rebbe talks about somebody wrote to the Rebbe that it shouldn't apply in Yisrael. They don't have the minhag, so the Rebbe writes that he should let me know the reason why they're not chayshish to this and that's Yisrael, and whether those who are not chayshish are reliable. And another one that Rebbe writes that you could say that maybe if in fact the minhag in Yisrael is not to be chayshish to this, you could say the reason is because Chatchila they did not accept this minhag, because he's also in Shulchan Aruch that Rebbe writes yesh nizar, that some are careful. And we already explained that a person should make Kiddush right away, as the Rebbe is quoting the Rebbe. And now that's the end of the quote. The Rebbe says, now, even though the Rebbe is pointing out that the Rebbe is saying you should make Kiddush right away, even though sometimes it'll be in that hour between 6 and 7. Nevertheless, the Rebbe says make Kiddush right away. But Tamu had the Kabbalah's minhag, and the reason why they did not accept this minhag, so possibly the reason why that's so, they didn't accept the minhag, even if it's not right when he came home from shul. Nevertheless, they don't wait for 7 o'clock. Why? Because there's a rule we have: somebody is performing a mitzvah, he will not be harmed. Then somebody else wrote to the Rebbe a possible reason because that's so the Bazalas don't rule. The Rebbe writes that that's not shaykh to this Indian because the Rebbe brings rice from the Gemara that this applies in Eretz Yisrael as well. In theory, whether or not the actual minhag is that way, that I've already addressed previously. Then another letter where somebody wrote the same thing, asking maybe it's only chutzlaris because there's the 70 sarim, whereas in Eretz Yisrael that Hashem observes the land. That's not the mashmos of the sugya in Gemara Shabbos. That doesn't differentiate Eretz Yisrael and chutzlaris. And according to that sugya in Shabbos, there's another reason to find out in every single country the minhag, the specific minhag in this, since it says there in that Gemara that once people have trampled it, once it's already done by many, you don't have to worry about it because Hashem protects the foolish. Therefore, in a country where they didn't have this minhag, to be careful about this, we can rely on Shem Hashem. And the last answer we have from the Rebbe about this is if somebody has guests, so the person is suggesting that since he's having guests and it's a mitzvah deraisa to be machnas erech, so therefore he should have the excuse of shemer mitzvah weida davaran. He shouldn't have to wait till 7. But the Rebbe says no. Why? Because shemer erech atzme ain't kind of in the shemer mitzvah. Because with respect to the guest, that's good for you, for the host. What about the guest? He doesn't have the mitzvah of achnas sarchim. So therefore, the whole rule of shemer mitzvah won't apply to him, and therefore. There's also no place for the assurance that he will be protected. So therefore, by extension, we can't say it about the host either, and the Rebbe's shayla this whole spot. All right, till here is where what we have from the Alter Rebbe and the Rebbe about this minhag. The Alter Rebbe says there's a minhag. The Alter Rebbe says not to keep it, but then the Rebbe says we do keep it. The Rebbe says first that it's from 6 hours from Chatzos Hamiti, 6 hours from Chatzos, from noon. Then the Rebbe says that what he saw practiced B'Peil in actuality is instead of 6 hours from actual noon, people count 6 hours from the mean noon. And the Rebbe says, the Rebbe compares it to, as the Alter Rebbe himself refers to the siman that talks about the cheshbon of the Meilid, and the Rebbe says just like there we follow average, so too here.
I'm going to interrupt for a second.
Sure.
What do you mean actual noon versus mean noon? Can you elaborate on that, please?
So this Chatzos is half point between sunrise and sunset, right? But Chatzos moves over the course of the year, right? You check the calendar, you see there's different times for Chatzos. So the mean Chatzos is actual noon, 12 o'clock, local time, not conventional time by the time zone, but the actual noon of this particular place. That's the average noon of the whole year, 4 days a year. We'll get to that in detail later, but that's the mean noon. So now let's get to the.
Let me ask a question. You have a second?
Sure.
In theory, is there ever a time where you're forced to make Kiddush before 6 because you take in Shabbos early? So can you also learn that that you should be doing it before the 6 hours approach, so this minhag is not even relevant to you? Not that if you already went to 6 hours, you should do that.
The Rebbe says that now the Rebbe, it's clear that even if you came home after 6, you still have to make Kiddush right away.
That's only because, right.
It's not for this
it
minute.
could be that I'm saying there's a separate factor here. The Rebbe is being justifying the minhag of what they're doing. So technically, once you came home and it's after 6, you have to be mikadosh miyad. But it could be that even then, lechatchila, you're meant to really make sure that it never got to 6. If you're going to keep this minhag, and you can still keep both together, you can do both. Which means if you always keep leishlei mikadosh miyad ediyim, you're never going to get to the 6th hour. Now, with Toya. Anyways, okay.
Yeah, well, it depends also what time of the year. We'll see. There's advantages to that. There's disadvantages. We'll get there one thing at a time.
So we had it. You asked about the person asked about the guests, but I didn't see mention the question of your wife and children. if they have a preference in the matter. That time's a hint ahead. Is that brought up in the
Ask the
discussion?
local Orthodox rabbi. Where this is
Well,
not
right now you're playing that role.
Lisa, here we're talking about theory here. We're trying to understand the sugya. If you want to talk about halacha l'maisa, ask your LOR. I mean, you have to make your own cheshbenis and talk to your mashpia how you weigh one thing against another. It's beyond the scope here.
Ellie, you said you said the Rebbe says we do that. Can you point out to me where he says that?
I mean, the whole thing is explaining what about the Zahiris. I mean, I guess in these answers, Rebbe doesn't specifically say, in the form you should do this. Rebbe's explaining. People asked, but that's the minhag. I mean, the Rebbe told it to people. We'll see further on. There's Chiddush about it, but certainly that was the minhag in Chabad always to be careful in this thing.
Got it. Thanks.
Anyway, so let's before we start nitpicking, let's go through the sugya and try to understand where this is all coming from, what the source is for this whole, what's going on with these Mars. Let's try to make a say there. So first of all, we have the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yutes Amud Beis. Tanya, Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda Emer. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda says, Shema Chasharas Bavle V'Odem Be'erev Shabbos Beis HaKnesses U'Beisei. Two angels accompany a person for Erev Shabbos from shul to his home. Echad Tev v'Echad Ra. One is a good angel, one is a bad angel. When he comes to his home and finds a lit candle and a set table and his bed made, a bed here doesn't mean literally bed you sleep on. Then they would sit on a like a divan. So the good angel says there should be the same next Shabbos, and the bad malach answers amen against his will. And if not, if these things are not ready, if the candle's not lit and the table's not set, the same thing. But the bad angel says that it should be the next Shabbos, should be the same thing. So that's where we first encounter these angels. Now we have the Abu Draham in Dinei Kiddush. He's the first that connects it to the times. So if, I put in the headings of each piece approximately when the author lived. So we have a historical perspective, who's talking to whom, who saw what, and I try to keep it in a chronological order to bring out the dialogue between the various peskim as we go along. So we're starting with Abu Draham. It's a 14th century, very important sefer on tefillah, on the siddur. He repeats the whole Gemara. And he quotes Harav Reb Meir, which apparently refers to Maharam Rottenberg, who was the previous generation before the Abu Draham, the late 13th century. Harav Reb Meir, Kizahu Fiseder Amazoas. That this is it relates, these angels relate to the Seder of the planets. Shemazal Tzedek Mishamash B'Sha'achrein Sha'arev Shabbos. That the mazel of tzedek is the mazel of the last hour of Erev Shabbos. U'malach shalei tzadkiel shmei, and his malach's name is Tzadkiel. Zo mazel tov, and that's a good mazel. U'mayde mishamish b'shar yishena shalei Shabbos, and mayde Mars is mishamish in the first hour of the night of Shabbos. U'malach shalei samach mem. V'zo malach ra. And that's the bad angel. Comes out that they meet each other. This one comes in when Shabbos comes in. Another one leaves. And they both accompany the person to his home. So what's going on here with these angels? How do angels relate to planets? So we have the Rambam Seder Torah, just to get an overview of what's going on. So first of all, the Rambam says that everything Hashem created in the world is divided into three types. There's Galem and Surah. So some things have a Galem and a Surah. Some things only have a Surah. So and some things don't have that they. So the Rambam talks about first physical things that are from both Galem and Surah, and then the Rambam goes on to talk about the that these are the planets and the stars, that their substance, that their form is not like their substance is not like other substance, and they're sorry. Please mute yourselves if anybody. Oh, mute everyone. So they have their a higher level of Galem and Surah, and then you have Surah without a Galem, a form without matter, and that's the Mavachim. That the Mavachim don't have a body, so that's a step above the Mazoas, the planets and the stars. So then the Rambam explains that the Galem are there's the spheres that surround. There's 9 spheres, and they surround the Earth. It's not exactly in the middle. We'll see later. The Rambam says that it's a little bit off to the side, but it's like an onion with 9 spheres around the Earth. So the closest sphere to us is the sphere in which the moon is fixed. Above it is the sphere in which Mercury, Kechav is Mercury, and then Nega, and then the sun, and then Maidim, Mars, and then Tzedek, and Shapsai, and the last one is the 8th is I'm sorry, not the last. The 8th is the sphere of all the stars, and the 9th is the outer sphere that turns every day, that does a full revolution every 24-hour period, and that drives the other spheres as well. Each one turns at its own speed. So every one of these 8 spheres the Rambam compares it to the layers of an onion, and they all turn from Ma'ariv to Mizrach. They're all. The Rambam goes into detail. We can skip over that. And they're all round, and Earth is in the middle, but not exactly in the middle, but they all surround the Earth. And the last point I want to bring out from the Rambam says that all the Kechavim and Galem, all the planets and all the spheres, they're all Bali Nefesh V'Dei B'Haskohen. They all have a soul and an intellect. And they're alive, and they recognize their creator, each one according to his level. And just like they recognize Hashem, they recognize themselves, etc., etc. And the intellect of the Kechavim and the Galgalim is less than that of Mavachim, but it's more than that of humans. So then I pasted in here. We're going to get to the whole Seder of the various mazalas. So in order to make it simpler, I pasted here from Wikipedia the entry on planetary hours. You can read it at your leisure. I pasted a link to the PDF in the chat. So basically, there's an ancient system that goes back to ancient times, and it was pretty much universal, not just Yidden. Goyim also had similar systems. They call it the Chaldean Order. Basically, each day is named after the mazel that rules the beginning of that day. But by the Goyim, they start from the morning, so that's why they call it Sunday, is the day that the sun is the first hour of the day. Monday is the moon, etc., etc. But of course, we start from the night, so our order is a little bit different, but it's the same cycle, meaning that the order of the planets is the same. In fact, the Wikipedia quotes some ancient astronomer who also counted from the night, and there's actually some graffito from the 1st century where they call what we would call a Wednesday, they call it a Sunday, because they're counting the way Yidden counted from the night, and Tuesday night, Wednesday, the first hour of the Wednesday 24-hour period is the sun. So anyway, so now we're going to get to the Gemara that discusses this. So before we get to the Gemara and Shabbos, the sugya that's relevant, just a brief diversion, just to get a background about this concept of zugis, of peers. There's some sort of danger that whether it's the Gemara there in Pesachim talks about, both in terms of mazikin are attached to peers and even numbers, as well as kshafim, witches and magic. So Klala de Milsa, after the Gemara goes through a whole bunch of things, what you should have to be careful about, what you're not careful about. But the Gemara concludes, Klala de Milsa, the general matter is, call the kapid, whoever is careful about zugas, about peers, and even numbers, kapti ba'adei, they are makpid on him, the mazikin. With the way kapid, and the one who's not makpid, way kapti ba'adei, the mazikin are not makpid on him either. Umiyu, nevertheless, you still have to be careful. So the Rashbam explains, call the kapid, yosem midai, somebody who's too careful, kapti ba'adei ashinda vesim ba'azike. The mazikin are makpid on him to harm him, since he's being too careful. The way kapid kokach, way kapti ba'adei ba'azike. Somebody who's not so careful, they're not makpid on him either to harm him. Nevertheless, you still have to be careful. I feel man the wake up dinon, even someone who's not careful, that the shindawesim are not makpid on him. Nevertheless, he has to be careful. The wake up the itema, the wake up the cloud, because if you're going to say that the Gemara means that he doesn't, that one who's not careful, they're not makpid on him at all, meaning it has no effect on him at all. Imkain zugas ominous group of Gemara. If so, then why did the Gemara mention this concept altogether? Instead, the Gemara should have said that a person should not be careful about zugas, so that the mazikin shouldn't be makpid on him. So from the fact that the Gemara does talk about it, so it shows that we do have to be somewhat careful, but not over the top, moderate caution. So now we get to the sugya and Shabbos, which is the real meat and potatoes here, which is the basis for this whole discussion. The blood wedding, Shmuel says that a person should that could wet his blood on Sunday, on Wednesday, and on Friday. But not Monday and Thursday. So somebody who has special merits from his forefathers can also let blood on Monday and Thursday, meaning that you shouldn't let blood on Monday and Thursday, because you need special merits to protect yourself if you do. Because Monday and Thursday is a time when the Bezdin Shomata sits, and the Bezdin Shomayla reflects the Bezdin Shomata and also sits at that time, and it's a time of dinin. So therefore, it's not a good time to let blood. So then the because Shabbat by timer, my timer, so the Gemara asks, why not Tuesday? Is it not because it's under the rule of Mars? The Kama Maidim is Zaveh, because is it not because Mars is in Zaveh, and we'll see in a minute what Zaveh means. So if so, Shabbat Kaima Zaveh. If so, on Friday, also Mars is in Zaveh. The Gemara answers, since it was trampled by many, meaning many people have the custom to let blood on Friday, Hashem protects the foolish. So now what does Zavi mean? So first of all, it's important to note that many Rishonim had a girsa bezuge, which is indisputably means pairs or even numbers. So according to that girsa, whenever Mars appears on even numbers on the even hours, when Mars rules on the even hours, those are the times that are dangerous to let blood, and on those days you can't let blood, and that's how Rashi is going to interpret it as well. I've prepared a chart here. You can see these are the names of the planets, Kiddush in English, and here is a chart of how the planets cycle through. So let's go first through the Rashi, and then we'll look at the chart. That the mazel of Maidim serves at even hours. And the mazel of Maidim is in charge of the sword and on the plague, and on punishment. Azug is caution, and even numbers are difficult. That they're that the mazikin have a power during them. It's a time that's of a danger of punishment. So now Rashi is going to explain the cycle. Shatzam Chankal. That's the Seder Hashois Shenitu Ameris. That's the order of the hours from when the planets were hung in the heavens. It starts with Shorish Ein Shaldal B'Shabbos. They were hung, as we know, on the first hour B'Yom Revi Nitu Ameris on Wednesday. So the first hour of Wednesday, meaning Tuesday night, beginning of Wednesday, Shemesh Shapsai. That was the hour of Shapsai, B'Shniyat Tzedek, and then Tzedek, V'achrav Maidim, V'achrav Chama, V'achrav Nega, V'achrav Kechav, V'achrav Levana, Nimtzu Zayna Mazois, Zayna Shois, V'chezim Chalil Leilam. So we have 7 Mazois for the 7 hours, and they continue. They go in a continuous cycle, a loop of 7 hours. Nimtzu B'Seidah Leilam, Simani Mazois, Amshamshim B'Tchilas Leilei HaShavua, Katznash Chalam. So the siman of the mazolas that are at the beginning of the night is Katznash Chavam, Mitzvah Shabbos Shoy Shein Shoy Kecham. Tchilos or Sheini Tzedek. Chem B'Seid Hazev Seid Tchilos Simoni Hayomim Chavam Katznash. And the hours that the day starts, the siman for them is Chavam Katznash. Shoy Sheino Sholachad B'Shabbos Chama. Shosheni B'Shabbos Levana. Shosheni B'Shabbos Maidim. Nimsa Maidim Chezer B'Chalila B'Shosh Minis B'Yayim V'Zugas. So on Tuesday, you see that Mars comes back a second time at the 8th hour, which is an even hour. But the other days, there's no the Mars doesn't serve on the even hours. Only by night. And by night, it's not the derech to bloodlet. So then the Gemara asks, Shabbat Erev Shabbos Naim Mekayim B'Zavi. Shari Shari Sheina Shchiyim Nega. Ofi Aseder Shchavam Katznash. Tchilas Hayom. Akiva and Tchilas Nega. V'Seder V'Chas Shatzam Chankal. Nimtzu Maschil Nachzer Halayla B'Shar Revius. Nimtzu Maid. I'm sorry. Nimtzu Maschil Nachzer Chalila B'Shar Revius. So the cycle starts over with the 4th hour. Nimtzu Maidim B'Shar Shishis. So the 6th hour comes out of Mars. So Gemara answers no.
Wait. Can you please move your cursor with the text that you're reading so I can follow along?
Okay. Kivan the Dashka Bei Rabim. They were accustomed to it because of the need. You crave with Suda Shabbos, that it should be close to the Suda of Shabbos. Since we said above that the covenant of Shabbos is eating large fish, we say Avodah Zarah, Sheni L'Dam Dag, that you should eat fish on the day after you bloodlet. Or either way, you should either bloodlet the day you eat fish, or you eat fish the day after you bloodlet, or the reverse. So since we eat fish on Shabbos, so therefore the custom was to bloodlet on Friday, and they relied on Shem P'sayim Hashem. Now let's look at Taisvis. The Kai Maidim Bizavi. We'll see in a minute on the chart that, actually, let's go down to the chart. So we see, let's first go through what Rashi just said. So Rashi says we ignore the hour, that's the shaded gray. We look from the beginning of day, which is this column right here. And you see that on the even hours, I highlighted in red, whatever you have Mars. So on the even hours, you see it only on Tuesday, which is right here on the 20th hour of the day. That's 2:00 in the afternoon. On Tuesday is the hour of Mars. And you see it again on Friday on the 12th hour, meaning the hour before Chatzos, at 11:00 in the morning. Again, it's Maidim, which is the 12th hour, which is an even hour. So that's also Friday. So those are the 2 days. Now Tessa is going to ask, what about Wednesday? Look at Wednesday. The last hour of the day of Wednesday is also Maidim, right? The 24th hour, and that's also an even hour. Let's go back to Tesvis. And for Tesvis, the Chacham weren't worried about it. The aim derech is because it's not it's not ordinary, it's not the way to bloodlet so late in the day, so close to night. Now, what we see from this Tosfos, and we saw from Rashi as well, that well, you can ask, it's okay, so why didn't the Chacham say don't bloodlet during those hours? So you could say that those, we'll see in a minute that there's another way of learning this Gemara that on those days, Mars has a special power the entire day. But the way Rashi and Tosfos are learning, it's only a problem during those hours. But apparently, you see from Tosfos that the Chacham were masakin on days that Mars is on even hours, so there's this danger that somebody might come and bloodlet during those dangerous hours. So Chacham said, don't bloodlet those days altogether, so that you shouldn't come to somehow mess up and bloodlet during those hours. So sort of a gezerah in order to avoid the dangerous hours. And on Wednesday, Chazal were in Geyser. They said that they didn't tell you not to bloodlet on Wednesday, since anyway it's the last hour of the day. It's not a time when people normally bloodlet. Now, we see Rabbeinu Hanano learns the same way. Also, you see, Rabbeinu Hanano says you can look over. Rabbeinu Hanano is one of the earliest Rishonim, the first generation of Rishonim, and Sefer Aruch, who's the generation after Rabbeinu Hanano, but also a very influential Sefer. Of course, a dictionary, but it has a big effect on halacha. Most famously in the whole sugya of Sekresha, the Dwei Nichole. So the Aruch teaches Zavu Zavi, the root Zayin Vav Vav. He teaches it as a pair, and he brings other examples from around Shas. That Zava the Sarbali, a pair of wraps like pants, and other things that are where Zava clearly means a pair. So it's identical to Zuge. So some Rishonim actually have the Girsa Zuge, some have the Girsa Zave, but they interpret it as Zuge. Either way, it means the same thing, that we're worried about even hours. Now, this is here, we're just going to go on a little detour. This is not really Negeo Halacha, because this was not known until very, very recently. But just to see a totally another way of learning this Gemara that can be interpreted completely differently. Just, it's interesting to see how it could have taken, like we said before about inflection points. If this had been known previously, perhaps some place would have followed this way, and we could have had a completely different approach. So first quote is from the Sefer Ibr, from Avraham Bar Chia Nasi, who's a contemporary of Ibn Ezra from the early Rishonim, approximately the same time as Rashi, drop later, and he wrote the earliest astronomical work. It's called Sefer Ibr, that he composed, and all the later works on astronomy drew from his Sefer Ibr. So he starts off by saying, so the mazel, the planet that serves the first hour of the night or from the day, it's said on that's rule governs that day, or that night. They should because man shacham zrichasa mizrach achi shekas emishkiasa achi zerachas al inyan hazeh. Hakechem misham shor shena bayem b'ktzei pas mizrach shacham zerachas alev. וכשתפנה שעה אחת מן היום בקצה מזרח, והשעה השנית בה, הכיכב האחר מאסכו שמש פס מזרח, תמצא החם זרח המקום האחר מן הארץ. הכיכב ההוא משמש מזרח בשער השינה, ושמש במקום ההוא בשער השינה שלהם. וכן החם זרח המקום האחר מקום, הכיכב ההוא משמש בשער השינה במקום האחר מקום. עד סעיף 12 בקצה, can't really see what it says there. B'tia achama shekas v'ktzei mizrach. B'tia achama shekas v'zrachas al sheikh ne'mayrev. Ha'keich v'ahu mishamash b'shar yishenu sheikh ne'mayrev. K'ashashimesh b'shar yishenu b'mizrach. B'timtza ha'keich v'ahu mishamash b'makam achar makim b'seif mizrach ad seif mayrev ad ha'shlomas yid gimel shoyis. Zeh minig hayem. V'chein ha'keich v'ameshu b'laylo b'shimur shoyis ha'laylo b'shkias achama b'mizrach ad zrichas ha'alem. So he's saying that's the mazel that rules over the first part of the day. That the first hour, that's going to follow the sun, and it's going to rule over that entire day. And similarly, the mazel that rules over the night will follow the cycle of the sun and will rule over that night. Now, in light of this, it's a little hard to understand this Gemara. Why is the Gemara talking about the hours if the whole day is ruled by the mazel of the first hour? So here we have a ritva The Ritva was a later edition, and the thing with the Ritva is that his Chiddushim were only published in 1990, very recently. Until then, at least on Shabbos, some came out a few years before, but until then, mostly what we have from the Ritva were there were a few parts that were published, very small parts, but mostly it was only things that were quoted in Shittim Kubetzes. So this whole Ritva was unknown until about 30 years ago. But if you read through the Ritva, first Ritva explains the whole way that Rashi and the Galem explained it. This is the way we were learning till now. Then we see, then the Ritva calls for Rambam Zal Pirish Bezugi Moshe Karen Zavis. The Rambam explains, and the manuscript says on the margin that it's from a tshuva of the Rambam that we don't have today. So this is the only source we have for this Rambam. The Rambam explained this Gemara in a totally different way. That either Zugi, he had the gears apparently Zugi, the Ritva. But in our Gemara, it's Zavi. Zavi can also mean Zavis. It's the same word, Zavi, Zavis. It's a corner. So the Rambam teaches that Maidim is Zavi, that the Maidim is in a corner. You see when the sphere turns around the world, it has 12 degrees. We'll call miles, and each degree, each of these hours, has 30 degrees within them. Altogether, we have 360 degrees. So the sphere is divided into 4 parts, and each part has 90 degrees. And at the beginning and end of each 90 degrees is a corner of the sphere. So when Maidim rules either at the beginning of the day, like we just saw in the Sefer Ibn, or which is one corner, right at the start of the day, first hour of the day, or on either side of noon, which are both corners, right? If we divide the day into 2 halves, right? We have a circle, the sphere. We cut off half the sphere as the night, we chop that off. So now we have a 90-degree semisphere. Now divide that in half, right? We have 4 parts now. It's two 90-degree parts. So noon is going to be the midpoint. So the hour before noon, 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock, those 2 hours are also called corner hours. So the planet that rules over those hours, who share with So when Mars rules over one of these corners, he rules over the sword and the plague. And you will only find it on Tuesday, which the day starts with Maidim. And on Friday, at the end of 90 degrees, which is also a corner. So when Now let's look at the chart again to understand the difference between Rashi and the Rambam. This is just out of sheer interest because we're going to see that this Rambam, since it wasn't known, it's completely ignored, and we're not going to see this again. But just to get a feel for how the Rambam learned the Gemara. So in the chart, I highlighted in yellow the sugas, the even hours during the day that Rashi's and Tesvis and all the Galem and everybody else is worried about. And in light blue, I highlighted the corner hours that the Rambam is worried about. And the purple hour is the hour, the 11 to 12 hour, the hour before Chatzos, is both an even hour, it's the 12th hour, and it's a corner hour. So that's the hour that both Rashi and the Rambam are worried about. So we look at the chart. So according to Rashi, Sunday, no problem, right? Monday, we got a problem. Maidim is in the 16th hour for Monday, and also on the 16th, but Monday anyway is not a good day because the Bezdin sits. So we're going to ignore Monday. Tuesday, according to Rashi, now we're talking. Tuesday, Maidim is on the 20th hour, so Tuesday is no good. Wednesday, Maidim is at 8 o'clock, so we said Tesva said that 8 o'clock is 11 o'clock, the last hour of the day, the 6th hour after Chatzos. So Tesva already said that 5 to 6 o'clock, it's too late. People don't blood wet then, so we're not worried about Wednesday. Thursday, again, no, we have Maidim in the first and the second hour of the day, the 14th hour, which is an even hour, no good. But again, according to Rashi, we already said that Monday and Thursday are no good. So we're not worried about Thursday because we already banned Thursday because of the Bezdin. And then again, Friday, we have Maidim in the 18th hour. And of course, Shabbos, we don't let blood, so that's not an issue. But this is if you look at the Gemara now, you see the Rambam has a much simpler way of learning the Gemara, because according to Rashi, first of all, why do the Gemara even have to say about Monday and Thursday, about the Bezdin, if anyways, on the even hours? And then you have Tesis question and answer about the evening of Wednesday. So you have a lot of questions and answers to make this Gemara work. Rambam, who apparently didn't have this Girsa of Zugi and had a different way of learning it, which is apparently the Galem didn't learn that way, but Rambam has an innovative way of learning this that dispenses with all these problems, because if you look at the Rambam's chart, the only days where you have an issue is Sunday, where you have this corner right here is the hour after Chatzos is Mars, and on Tuesday, where Mars is the first hour of the day, and of course on Friday. Those are the only days where we have an issue. So Rambam doesn't have to worry about Mondays or Thursdays. Monday and Thursdays, we have a different reason why we don't have blood, nothing to do with Mars. And according to Rambam, we would never have this whole issue with the 7th hour on Erev Shabbos, because the Rambam is not concerned about hours. He's only concerned when Mars is on a corner. But this Rambam was never known, and it's completely ignored and forgotten. So we're going to move on. But it's just interesting to note that there's another way to learn this Gemara. I couldn't get this thing to scroll. It would be nice. All right. So now the question is, are we going to count the 6 hours in Shas Manias or Shas Shabbos? There's two ways to count hours. You have hours the way you have hours the way we count hours generally in halacha, which is the day is divided into 12 between Nates and Shkia. We divide that into 12, and each 12th of the day is 1 hour. That's the way we have Zman Kriya Shema and all the other Zmanim of the day. And then you have regular 60-minute hours. So are we counting with 60-minute hours or with Shai Zmanis? So we're going to look at the Gemara in Eruvin, Nunat Nunvav Amud Aleph, Amar Shmuel, Ein Tkufas Nisan Nefalas El Barba Ribei Ayem.
Remember to move the cursor.
Sorry, the Tkufa of Nisan, the season change, the solstice, I think it's called, of Nisan only comes out in 3/4 of the day. It only comes out in four possible times of the day, either at the beginning of the day or the beginning of the night, or at noon or at midnight. So he goes through each tkufa when it can come out. Let me just give you a little brief introduction. So there's the tkufa Shmuel. There are two, in the Gemara, there are two main ways of counting the years. There's the tkufa Shmuel, because we know that we count months by the moon, but we still have to catch up our calendar to the sun, so that Pesach should be in the spring. So there are two ways of calculating that. So Shmuel, the Tkufa Shmuel, which is a more of a rough estimate, where each solar year is counted as 365 days and a quarter day. Then there's the Tkufa Ravada, where you have the 19-year cycle, and you simply add up the whole 19-year cycle and you divide by 19, and then you get the length of the solar year. So it's about 4 minutes shorter than the tkufa of Shmuel per year. So, but our calendar is based on the tkufa of Ada. However, the tkufas, when we're counting seasons, we count according to Shmuel's tkufa, because it's much easier to work with, because it's just quarter days. So Shmuel says, now he's telling us when the tkufa, the change of seasons. So there are 4 times of the day when Nisan can be either the beginning of the day, the end of the day, Chatzos, or midnight. Wenn Tkufas Tammuz nefels or ein beachas umachza, ein b'sheva umachza, ben b'yem, ben b'layla, ben Tkufas Tisha nefels or ein b'shalosh shoyes, ein b'tesha shoyes, ben b'yem, ben b'layla, ben Tkufas Tevis nefels or ein b'arba umachza, ein b'asra umachza, ben b'yem, ben b'layla, ben Tkufa Tisha b'achad yem. Between one tkufa and another, there's 91 days, b'sheva shoyes, and 7 hours umachza, and a half hour. Ben Tkufa meshachas v'chaverta or chatzi shah. And each tkufa takes out of its the next tkufa a half an hour. Meaning that if the first tkufa is at the top of an hour, the next tkufa change is going to be at the bottom of the hour. So Rashi is going to explain let me try to zoom this in because it's a little hard to read like this. Whoops, that did not work well. How did that happen? No, that definitely did not work very well. So anyway, Rashi basically repeats here what he said in the Gemara and Shabbos. I don't think there's any reason to read the whole thing. Whoever wants to can read it on their own. But let's look at Tosfos. The main point here is the Tosfos. The Ri asked, if there's always 12 hours in the day, and 12 hours of the night, if so, the tkufas are not equal. The seasons are not equal. And one is always longer than the other. Because if the tkufa of Nisan will come out in the beginning of Wednesday night, let's say Shkia by Wednesday, so the tkufa of Tammuz will come out 7.5 hours into the night. The tkufa of Tishrei begimel shoyes b'yom, and the tkufa of Tishrei will be 3 hours into the day. Instead of the 7 hours and a half hours that are small in the night of Tammuz, because in Tammuz the nights are very short. Because the tkufa of Tammuz didn't come out at the beginning of the night. On the so we make up for it 91 days and 7 hours and a half hour in the nights of Tishrei, which are medium nights. And so too, the 7.5 hours that's at the end of Tkufas Nisan that are extra on top of this 91 days are short hours. Ubitkufas, because then the nights are short. Ubitkufas Tammuz are Yubenis. If we say so basically Tosfos is asking, how can we say that the tkufa is always a fixed amount of time if we're counting using, this is assuming that we're using Shais Manias. Sometimes the hours are going to be long hours if we're talking about summer days, and sometimes it's going to be short hours if we're talking about summer nights, or the other way around. If we're talking about winter days, it's going to be short hours. If we're talking about winter nights, it's going to be longer hours. So we don't have a fixed length of the tkufa. So Tosfos says, if you're going to say, if you say that we're talking about fixed hours, not Shais Manias, and in a long day or a long night, there could be up to 18 hours, and in a short night could be 6, or the reverse. So if we say that we're talking about fixed hours, not Shais Manias, it's not, you won't have that he says that Tkufas Nisan only comes out at a certain hour. And everything he said, why? Because it's not going to come out at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, right? Because it can come out, the hours are going to be much longer, because the night's not going to start at the 12th hour from the beginning of the day, or the other way around. So you're going to have the tkufa coming out in the middle of the day, not at the beginning of the night, like Shmuel said. So how does this cheshbon work? And also, it won't work that we say in Gemara we just learned in Masechta Shabbos that on Tuesday and on Friday the Shabbos comes out on on the even hours. And other days it doesn't come out. If you say it's talking about fixed hours, it also comes out on even hours during the day. Because in the other days also, right? If we say we're only worried about night, let's look back at the chart for a moment. So if we say the night's we're gonna expand the night, it's gonna be an 18-hour night. It's gonna start, let's say, even going back 1 hour. Suddenly, we have on Sunday. We have Sunday. Yeah, we have on Sunday. We have the last hour before the night is now daytime. So that's also item is going to be on an even hour, right? Or let's look at a different hour. Let's look at Monday, right? Monday, it's going to be the Sunday night is going to go extra. If we're talking about a summer day, it's going to go into the night of Monday. Again, we're going to have mindim on the first hour and the second hour of the night, and so on and so forth. Basically, you're always going to have mindim on even hours on other days because the days are going to expand beyond the days that we have in the summertime, right? Because the day is going to be up to 18 hours, depending at what latitude you are. So Taisus concludes it can't. So therefore, it can't be talking about Shais Shabbos. It has to be talking about Shais Manis. So therefore, you always have the Mazawa start at the beginning of the night, and you have 12 hours a night, 12 hours a day, always. So Taisus really is left with a question. So since the Gemaras don't work. If you say you're talking about Shais Shabbos, if you're talking about fixed hours, you have a problem with the Tkufa starting at the beginning of the night, and you have a problem with the Mazawas being at during specific hours during the day. And if we say it's talking about Shais Shabbos, I'm sorry, if we say it's talking about Shais Manis, then this whole cheshbon that Shmuel is saying here doesn't make sense because it's not a fixed Tkufa. Then the Tkufa, the length of the season will vary based on the length of the days and nights. So Taisus is left with a question. So I'm thinking how much, let's finish this subject and then we'll end for the day. So we're going to go back to Sefer Iber. He goes at length how the days are counted and how the Mazoas rule over the hours. So the days the day is divided into 24 equal hours, and that's what's called hours. There's 12 hours a night, and there's 12 hours a day. There's 15 parts in each hour. He goes through the whole cheshbon. It's not so negate to us. Whoever wants to read it can read it on their own. We'll skip over that. So the point is, he says clearly that the hours, when we're talking about astronomical hours, are fixed hours, not like Taisus. Then we go to the next Sefer Iber, to the following it's really his contemporary, but he wrote after him and he quotes the previous Sefer Iber. So we have from Ibn Ezra wrote also Sefer on Ibur. The hours that Shmuel refers to in all his cheshbenis of Tkufis, Shabbos, they're fixed hours. Then he goes through a whole thing. He's trying to prove about something about the Kufa Shmuel. We're not going to get into that. So it's not. The point is, I just want to bring out that he assumes as an obvious assumption that the hours have to be fixed hours. So too, we have the Rambam. Let's Kiddush HaChedesh. The day and the night are 24 hours at all times. There's always 12 hours a day. And there's 12 hours a night. And each hour is divided into 1,080 parts. So we see very clearly, according to all these sources, that we're talking about fixed hours of where the entire 24-hour period is divided into 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night, not totally irrespective of when actual sunrise and sunset are. And the last source we have here is the Yavuz Yaakov Emden, who answers Taisus' question. So first he gives one answer. Again, become a Shavah. that Shmuel is talking about in a place where day and night are always equal at the equator. Or another answer, the way that we always count 12 hours. I mean, both answers are that we count 12 hours. The question is, do we count 12 hours because physically there are 12 hours a day and 12 hours a night, or just that's the way we count? So the second answer is we always count 12 hours, whatever's left over, meaning, let's say on a winter day where you only have 9 hours a day, and you're counting 12 hours. So you divide the two halves, meaning the two remainders. We add the remainders before and after. Anyway, so he says that you add the two the whatever's left that you don't have enough. Let's say you don't have enough hours in the day to have 12 hours. So let's say you have an 8-hour day, so you'll tag on 4 hours before the day, 4 hours after the day, and you have a 12-hour day. We're going to call that day. So either way, whether you go with this first answer, it's talking about physically a 12-hour day, that's talking about the equator, or we're going to treat the whole world like the equator. We're always talking about 12-hour fixed days. So it's clear from all these sources, not like Tosfos, that I mean, Tosfos itself is left with a question. So from all the sources we see, that it has to be fixed hours, and that answers Tosfos. Tosfos said, well, how can we talk about fixed hours if we said that it's always going to be the tkufa in the beginning of the night or the beginning of the day or chatzos? And also, he asked from the Gemara from Shabbos. We say that it's going to be by that Mars only comes out by day on these days if we're going to have more hours a day. So no. So the answer is, Yaakov Emden answers that no, because we're always going to call 12 hours day and we're going to call 12 hours night, no matter what. Whether the day is longer, the day is shorter, it doesn't matter. For the purposes of discussion of Mazolis, we always have a 12-hour day and 12-hour night. So that resolves Tosfos' question. I think that's a good place to break for the day, and we can resume Wednesday, Mirz Hashem, with getting into the actual minhag of Kiddush in the 7th hour. Any questions?
Yeah, what day is this year?
Wednesday, Mirz Hashem, we're going to continue.
It's gonna be Mondays and Wednesdays?
I'm not sure. I think we're going to do once a week Wednesday, but since I couldn't do it last week, so today's like a makeup, I guess. And
First one?
lengthy subject, so I figure we should divide it in half.
Okay.
So it's about an hour shows manius or shows how exactly are we measuring this?
I can keep going. You guys want to keep going, but I don't know if
It's too much to swallow.
Sleepy here.
Okay. Shkoyach, Ali.
I think it's a natural place to break. When we come back, we're gonna start with the sources of the actual minhag of.
How many? Let me ask a question. How long do you expect this sugya to take?
Well, it depends how deep into the nitty gritty we go next time, but we can certainly finish it next time, hopefully.
Okay.
I would encourage
I'll-
everyone to read through, well, maybe we might need 2 more shiurim actually, because I want to go into the Rebbe shit in detail. I might take a shiur itself.
Okay.
There's a sikha.
Shkoyach, Ali.
It's relevant. All right. Any other questions?
That's all. Thank you.
Yeshikar,
Thank you
very
much
nice.
for joining. And
Thanks.
continue on Wednesday, Mr. Shem. I got the nacht.
A good dag.